You're watching Flowers for Desiree, part 2 of 2. And welcome to my studio. This is Dena Tollefson. I'm so glad to have you here today. So the inspiration for this painting came from my garden. I grow these black-eyed Susans in my perennial bed in Cedar Rapids, Iowa in the United States. Back behind there you can see a little bit of zebra grass also. But these stems and these leaves are very prickly and rough, and the flowers themselves are very exuberant. So I want to capture that feeling in paint on the canvas. So I'm using a spoon and painting knives to apply the paint, and this technique is called Daubism. If you're new to my channel, I welcome you, and I'm so glad to have you here. And if you've come back again, thank you for coming back, and it's really great to have you here. And I hope you'll ring the subscription bell and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Today I'll be showing you how to mix your own shades and tints and variations of color using a limited palette. So in this painting there are only 8 original colors, and I'll show you how to mix your own versions and your own neutrals so that everything will coordinate together on your work. And then I'll be demonstrating my signature Daubism technique, where I start with a finished underpainting and then use spoons and knives and create a very highly textured, like a low relief, kind of a mix between a mosaic and traditional painting and a low relief sculpture. So what I'm doing here is testing this color up on the canvas. It was a little too light, added a little bit more blue here and there, and now that color is looking good. So I'll just continue to mix that. A tip is to use a palette knife or a painting knife to mix your color rather than using your brush. It's really hard to get that paint out of your brush after you've been painting, get that paint up in the ferrule. It's just easier to use a painting knife or palette knife for that. So I've got 2 different sizes of spoons that I use. These spoons are just set aside only for painting. So it's safer to not mix your paint and then use the spoon. It's good to keep them separated and out of the way so people don't eat paint by mistake. So this painting is called Flowers for Desiree, and it's a commissioned painting through Canyon Row Contemporary Art, who's the wonderful art gallery that represents my originals in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So they had a client who had liked a little tiny small, this painting is 40 inches tall and 20 inches wide, but they had liked a little small, little honey, just a little 4x6, and asked for a larger version of that. So now taking Diarylide Yellow and applying that to the canvas. There we go. So I'm using the direction of the marks to radiate out from the center of the flower to get it to kind of convey a sense of energy, and by using the arranging the marks in a certain shape, I'm hoping to amplify the idea that the flower is very vital and alive and vibrant. Get a mark there. There we go. So now Pyrrole Orange. There we go. So I developed this technique called Daubism where all of the marks are put on in a textured way. If you're familiar with pointillism, pointillism is individual little marks of color put on with a brush, and it's very flat. And the Daubism leaves a cupped form, a raised form, and it's technically a form of divisionism. Let me grab a tool here. So I'm layering color upon color upon color. So now coming in with just the primary yellow. And my goal at the end is that you feel like you want to touch the painting. So I feel like I've done my job if you feel like you want to reach out and touch the canvas. So all the paint today is from the brand Golden. They're heavy-bodied acrylics. And I like this brand a lot because it's very pigmented and the paint is got a really wonderful texture. So I'm now going to use the Mars Black and some primary yellow and then create a fresh green by mixing yellow and black together. So all the colors used today, there are only 8 colors in the painting, and all the colors and variations of those originals work together to make one color statement. But the original colors here are Yellow Ochre and Dioxazine Purple and Cad Red Hue, Phthalo Blue Red Shade, Titanium White, Mars Black, Primary Yellow, and Pyrrole Orange. So just by taking only those colors and just mixing them up in different ways, all of the blues and the greens, all of the rust and the purples and the blues and grays and variations on the white, all of those colors are mixed with just only that set of colors. Now I'm using the small tool and a gray mixed up with the white, a tiny amount of the Dioxazine Purple, some of the Yellow Ochre, and mix this kind of a grayed color. Okay, let's mix up a neutral color using some of the Titanium White with a little yellow in it, the Pyrrole Orange, Yellow Ochre, and primary yellow. So I'm aiming to get kind of a khaki color, kind of a light golden color with some warmth in it. I want to place this color next to the other bright colors to kind of neutralize or make it so the colors aren't so hot. There we go. So the palette that you see me holding is a Masterson Stay Wet palette, and a big tip I have is if you are working with acrylics, definitely try and use a palette like the Masterson. If you don't have the Masterson Stay Wet palette, try and get something similar. I haven't found one that's better than the Masterson. It's actually my favorite. It's got a sponge at the bottom that is reusable and washable. And then you put these little paper membranes on top. You soak it first in hot water and then lay that on top of the Masterson Stay Wet palette. And what that does is it perfectly controls the amount of humidity around your paint so that your paint is always workable and doesn't get a skin on it. And you can also put a cover on top. They have a cover with it. And I have literally kept paint for weeks that way. So there's no loss of paint, and your paint is always in good working order. You can walk away without covering the palette, walk away for a half hour, an hour, and you come back and your paint is all just fine to use, almost similar to the way oil paint would be. And I'm using the larger palette. I've also got the little mini version too, but it's really a great tool for any acrylic painter. Let's get a mark right here. There we go. This color kind of reminds me of butterscotch pudding a little bit. It looks kind of delicious, but I know to not eat the paint. So by putting these neutral colors next to the bright original colors out of the tube, it helps to weave all the colors together. And I'm being careful to place the colors next to in the way that they're placed, so that we get a general sense of motion in the painting and a sense of energy. Sometimes I'll turn the painting sideways or even upside down in order to make sure that I'm really getting good coverage and can have access to all areas of the painting. So let's take a little titanium white and some Phthalo Blue Red Shade. If you're like me, you really like blue. I'm kind of a blue person. All different colors of blue. That and pink and purple, I guess, are some favorites. If you have a favorite color, let me know in the comments below what your favorite is. So this fresh bright blue, by only mixing just the white and the Phthalo Blue Red Shade together, I'm getting a really bright blue. You can see the difference between the other blues and grays that we've already applied. And my goal on the painting is that when you get up really close, you can see all these little variations of color, but from far away, the painting looks kind of representational, but up close you get this feeling of the texture, and then you get these little surprise colors or these little combinations of colors. So I want the painting to look interesting from far away as well as close up. So this gray is a combination of the titanium white and the yellow ochre and a tiny amount of Mars black. So on every painting that I do, I try and include gray. You can see how that gray looks, how it really sings next to that bright stroke of Pyrrole Orange. And this purple that you see is a mix of Dioxazine Purple and the Phthalo Blue Red Shade and a small amount of titanium white. In fact, all these little purples that you see here are just a variation of that color. That to make that magenta color, I added the cad red hue, cad red hue. And all those little variations. And then this peach color is a mixture of Pyrrole Orange and a tiny amount of Yellow Ochre, and then and a fair amount of titanium white. Get a mark right there. There we go. And there's the finished painting. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you again. Until next time, this is Dena Tollefson. Bye-bye.